I want to start off this video by saying that a lot of these passives are subject to change. The devs are constantly making additions to what changes they're making, and I actually filmed most of this video yesterday just to check back on the document to see that there's 3 more passives being changed. So I would say for the most part the information I'm presenting here is going to be consistent with what changes to expect from the game, but if not, I'll put the passive changes document in the description. And alongside that, this video should come out with timestamps, so feel free to just look through and see if the Pokemon you're interested in has any changes. But yeah, enjoy! So we're going to be starting off with Eternatus, who instead of Supreme Overlord will be getting Neutralizing Gas. Now, I don't really understand why. I mean, Supreme Overlord is kind of a very situational ability, you know, an ability you don't want to have to use. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but Neutralizing Gas does also kind of fit in with the theme, because when you do the boss fight against Eternatus, he's trying to kind of neutralize every single option you have with the items and with the stat boosts and everything like that. And it would make the boss fight against Eternatus more challenging, given that I'm pretty sure it suppresses your ability. So, I don't know. You know, I'm okay with this change overall. Next up, it's Gimmighoul and Gholdengo. I think I'm saying those names right. That instead of Contrary, they will be getting Honey Gather, which I love this change. Unpopular opinion, because Contrary and Good as Gold as a combination on Gholdengo is just ridiculously good. Having these egg moves like Armor Cannon alongside his signature ability Make It Rain is just stupid to have with Contrary. It's too good. It's too good on an already good Pokemon. You know, Good as Gold is a great ability. Steel Ghost is really good typing. He has great special attack. He doesn't need Contrary. He doesn't. And I think Honey Gather fits in with the theme of the Pokemon being so centered around money. So I like this change overall. I think it's a great balance change. So the next passive replacement is going to be the Klink evolution line, which instead of Steelworker, they're going to be having Steely Spirit, which is just an overall upgrade. Steelworker, all it does is it amplifies the damage done by Steel type moves, whereas Steely Spirit does that, and it does it for allies. And I think that makes way more sense for a COG Pokemon, especially one with plus or minus that's clearly trying to boost the stats of their allies. So, great change. Alright, this next one is going to be a pretty significant nerf, and it's going to be on the Bagon line. We're going to go from Adaptability to Dragon's Maul. All Dragon's Maul does is it multiplies the power of dragon type moves by 1.5, and Bagon has access to stab and this multiplier, so you're going to be effectively doing, I think, double damage with dragon type moves. But with Salamence and adaptability, you could have this access to a ×2 multiplier for both dragon type moves and flying type moves. Now you're just restricted to the multiplier for dragon type moves, which isn't the worst nerf, but it is especially worse when you consider that Salamence Mega is a thing and has the ability Aerialate, because all your normal type moves become flying type moves, so that you really want to use flying type moves with adaptability. But with Dragon's Maul, it's like it doesn't really matter as much. However, overall, I wouldn't say I'm opposed to this nerf. Next change is going to be the Dwebble line, which instead of Anger Shell, it's going to be getting Rocky Payload, which I don't think I agree with at all, to be honest. I mean, Crustle's game plan is already pretty simple. It just wants to use Shell Smash once and has access to Sturdy, and then it wants to OKO the opponent. And with its solid attack stat, it can get away with doing that. And combining that with Anger Shell, it has more of a chance of doing that because it increases its speed even further and its attack even further. However, the switch to Rocky Payload forces you into this box where you have to use rock type moves to do damage, which, you know, isn't the best thing for Crustle. Furthermore, Crustle's access to rock type moves are, I mean, they're not terrible. The issue is that there's only one physical attacking move that is a rock type move that Crustle has that has 100% accuracy. The rest have either 80, 90, or 95, so it's never going to be a consistent option. Smackdown has a pretty lackluster 50 base power, so it's not like you're going to be even using this over your other options, but I don't know. This over Anger Shell, I see a clear winner, and it's Anger Shell, and I don't know why it's being changed. This next change is going to be for the Finneon line, which instead of Drizzle, it's going to be getting Water Bubble. I would say I'm completely indifferent to this change because I don't know what anyone would want to go for running Luminion on their team. I'll start off by saying I don't understand why this Pokemon is even weighted at 3. It makes no sense. Drizzle and Swift Swim are good together, but with the base speed of 91, it's not that good, and it's not like you're going to be a sweeper either because your attack stats are so low. And then you look at its learn set and realize, hey, this Pokemon doesn't really learn like anything too useful. It has some solid egg moves. Like Bouncy Bubble and Freeze Dry, those are great, and Quiver Dance, amazing, but it's not enough for this Pokemon. And Water Bubble is an improvement, but this Pokemon sucks. The next passive change we're going to be talking about is Pidgey's evolution line, which instead of Gale Wings, will be getting Flare Boost. So Flare Boost increases the power of special moves by 50%, and I believe when you have Flare Boost as an ability, Flame Orb has a chance to be introduced into your item pool. So if you look at the starter costs, and you skip ahead to the Mega, if you're able to get a Mega Pidgeot from just a starter cost of 2, which is very cheap, that can be really good. Really good. 121 base speed and 135 special attack alone warrants using a Pokemon that has Hurricane and No Guard. And then you have Flare Boost to boost your special moves. That's insane. That's really good. I would say it's a buff. I would say it's better than having Gale Wings. That special move boost is just really strong on a Pokemon that has the potential to OKO like every Pokemon in its path. Next up is the Galarian Ponyta line, which is going from Pixelate to Moxie. It has Quick Attack, Stomp, Takedown, and that's about it in the Learn pool. With the egg moves, Extreme Speed being a priority 80 base power fairy type move with Pixelate is pretty good. Going from Pixelate to Moxie is just a lot of give and take. It's like the most, I don't know, I think it's the most indifferent change possible. I know it definitely makes this Pokemon less useful in Endless because Moxie, you know, it's not really useful when the biome switches so often in Endless. And in Classic mode, it's a lot more useful because the biome doesn't usually switch and there's only a trainer battle every 5 or 10 floors. Overall, I would say it's a slight nerf because Extreme Speed is an egg move and having a priority fairy type move with the added bonus of Stab is just really good. It Pixelate favors that very well. Moxie, I don't know if it does, you know, this Pokemon enough justice, especially with the starter cost of 4. Alright, Sigilyph is going from Magician to Flare Boost, which I don't know why we're doing Flare Boost again. I don't know how that fits with the theme of the Pokemon. I know it fits very well with the theme of the Pokemon that originally gets that ability, which is Drifblim and Drifbloom, but Sigilyph, explain. Now it's not a bad change. It actually, I would say it's more useful than Magician. You're already gonna have you know, in like Endless mode, you're gonna have a ton of Grip Claws, you're gonna have an endless income of items, so you don't really need Magician on any Pokemon, and Flare Boost is really good on a Pokemon that has access to Tinted Lens. So I would say it's a buff overall, but I don't know how it fits in with the theme. Alright, the next change is going to be Relicanth's passive from Solid Rock to Primordial Sea, which is Primal Kyogre's signature ability, I believe. So this is a really good ability if you don't know already how great Primal Kyogre is. It gives you the water type boost, it nullifies all fire type moves, and overwrites weather abilities of the opponent. In my opinion, this is a 10 out of 10 change. Solid Rock is already a great passive ability that fits Relicanth's, Pokemon, but Primordial Sea kind of fits in with Relicanth being like the Gen 3 Pokemon that leads you to the Reggie trio. It's like, in my mind, just has an association with the legendaries from Gen 3. So giving it a legendary ability while having, you know, pretty relatively modest stats, I think that's completely fair. I think it makes sense. Next change is going to be the Tirtouga line, which is going from Anger Shell to Water Absorb. If you already saw my opinion on Crustle, you know my opinion for this. I don't agree with it. Why? Why Water Absorb? Why? Whatever, I don't even care. Go away. Next change is going to be the Munchlax line going from Ripen to Harvest, which is very obviously a nerf. Ripen doubles the effects of berries being used, whereas Harvest gives you a 50% chance of restoring the berry after it's being used. The thing is that Harvest is kind of null and void as an ability in this game because berry pouches exist and increase your chance to not consume berries by up to, I think, 90% if I'm not mistaken. So there's no point in having Harvest at that point. I mean, unless you want the 100% guaranteed, don't use my berry clause or something. I don't know. Is this change balanced? I would say maybe, because look at Gigantamax Snorlax's stats. 200 HP is ridiculous. And having access to Belly Drum, also ridiculous with a 130 base attack. This is a really good Pokemon. The only thing it falls short of is speed, which you can always set up with a Trick Room or a Tailwind, or Tailwind is not going to be doing this justice. What am I saying? Or a Quick Claw. Thinking on it more, I think it's completely fair. This Pokemon shouldn't have Ripen. It should probably have Harvest. The next change will be the Rufflet line, which is going from Gale Wings to Speed Boost. Now, this is not a bad change when you consider Hisuian Bravery has a 65 base speed and a 112 special attack. It definitely needs that speed boost in order to be viable. And with Esper Wing, you essentially have the potential to increase your speed by 2 stages in 1 turn. If you just use Esper Wing your first turn, then at the end of that turn, you get your speed boost and you have 2 stages of speed increased. This can turn your ordinary Pokemon with Tinted Lens into a sweeper, because with a 112 special attack and a pretty solid egg move pool and a pretty solid just vanilla learn pool, you're going to be doing some damage. Alright, Manaphy is going from Simple to Primordial Sea, which I would say is a nerf when you look at the egg moves. Quiver Dance with Simple is phenomenal. On this Pokemon, it's ridiculously good. I would say this is a very fair nerf. I would like to point out the fact that Finneon will actually be retaining Simple as its passive. If you don't know, they used to have the same passive and the same egg moves and the same ability, but in this change they will have different passives. I think it's nice that Finneon gets to maintain this kind of niche with the Simple and Quiver Dance access, but I still think this Pokemon is too cheap. Having a starter cost of 4 with such a ridiculously easy setup and really good egg moves, I think this Pokemon also needs to be nerfed. But I am glad that Manaphy's passive ability changed to Primordial Sea instead. So another healthy change is the Kabuto line, which is going from Sharpness to Tough Claws. The reason this is a good change is because Sharpness only powers up slicing moves, and apart from your egg moves, your only slicing moves are going to be Slash, Night Slash in your Learn set, and then I think just Razor Shell in your TMs and HMs. So this Pokemon doesn't really have much access to Sharpness outside of its egg moves, and for that reason, it's not good without its egg moves. However, I'd like to point out that Sharpness actually boosts the power of slicing moves more than Tough Claws does of all moves. I think Sharpness does 50% increase and Tough Claws does a 30% increase roughly. So, I mean, your egg moves are going to be nerfed a little bit apart from high horsepower, which is going to be buffed. So it's give and take, but overall, I would say, I mean, it's a nerf if you were just planning on using the egg moves, and it's a buff if you weren't. Overall, I would say that the passive change does sacrifice some of its theme, but it does give Kabutops more of a use if you don't have access to all the egg moves. Alright, Guzzlord will be getting Poison Heal instead of Innards Out, which I don't know how I feel about that. I would say it's clearly a nerf. I feel like a lot of the Pokemon's gimmick is to take damage to deal some damage, and its moveset complements that very well, and just getting rid of that and replacing it with Poison Heal does give the Pokemon more staying power, but it's at the expense of the Pokemon's main gimmick. I won't pretend that I've used this Pokemon before, but with this Pokemon's access to moves like Sucker Punch, Comeuppance, Slack Off, and Endure, this Pokemon, especially paired with Shell Bell, had very reliable ways of regenerating its health, and its high HP stat already provided a lot of staying power, so I don't know if it needed Poison Heal in place of that. Personally, I feel like Poison Heal fits the theme of this Pokemon a lot less. And yeah, overall, I wouldn't say this is the best change. Latias is losing Soul Heart, but it's getting Prism Armor, which in my opinion is actually a buff, believe it or not. Latias does not have the best defensive typing. It's weak to, 6 different typings, and that's pretty bad. But having Prism Armor kind of negates that issue a lot, especially with this bulk. So you're going to be living forever. And Latias has Quiver Dance as an egg move, so you don't really need to increase your special attack with Soul Heart when you have Quiver Dance already there for you. I would say it's a buff. I would say this new ability fits with the theme of the Pokemon a little bit less, but overall this is a buff in my opinion. Next up is the Quaxly line, which is getting Opportunist instead of Defiant, which is a really good ability to have in Pokerogue. Every time your opponent increases their stats, you're going to increase your stats as well with Opportunist. And Defiant is just a very nothing passive, especially when compared to the other starters that have really, really good passives. And by other starters, I mean like the other starter trios, like when you first start the game. I would say that at this point, this Pokemon might be a little bit overtuned. Having a starter cost of 3, having Opportunist, having Moxie, having those great egg moves, that makes this Pokemon really, really strong. However, the other starter trios have abilities that are just as good as Quaxly, so it's not like you can really complain about it. I think it's just the theme of the game. You know, the starter trios are going to have a starter cost of 3, and they're going to have very powerful abilities, and that's just it. I don't know how to say this Pokemon's name. Jangmo-o gets Dauntless Shield in place of Punk Rock. I will say it's very obviously a nerf because you're losing access to the damage boosted Overdrive, Clanging Scales, Boom Burst, as well as a bunch of other moves. Yeah, and that's really all there is to say. It is a nerf. I don't know if Dauntless Shield fits, you know, this Pokemon's theme better than Punk Rock does. And I don't know if this Pokemon really deserves it. Yeah, that's really it. Cherubi will be getting Orichalcum Pulse instead of Drought, which is just a better version of Drought. And I think it's funny. I think it's funny giving Cherubi just like a legendary Pokemon's ability. But yeah, just a buff. Nothing much to say about this. Kyogre instead of Rain Dish will be getting Mold Breaker, which is just, I mean, I think it's a nerf, but it's just an okay move. Yeah, that's all there really is to say about this. It's just a nerf. Spritzee will be getting Fur Coat instead of Mystic Surge, which I think fits with the theme of the Pokemon pretty well. Fur Coat doubles your defense, which is something this Pokemon might need with a defense of 72. And with the abilities Healer and Aroma Veil, it's very clear that this Pokemon is supposed to be sort of like a support Pokemon in doubles battles. So having Trick Room, Wish, and Revival Blessing and this double defense really allows this Pokemon to live a little bit longer. This might be a nerf, but it actually gives this Pokemon a passive that fits more with the theme of the Pokemon. But I don't know, I think I'd rather have Misty Terrain on a support Pokemon. The Drowzee line gets Magician instead of Bad Dreams, which actually makes me sad. Why would you get rid of a passive that fits so well with the theme of the Pokemon in place of Magician, which only, you know, loosely fits in with the theme of the Pokemon? This Pokemon has Dream Eater, it has Hypnosis, it has Nightmare. Why are we getting rid of Bad Dreams and replacing it with Magician? I understand Pendulums kind of fit in with the theme of, you know, Magicians, but no. I will say I'm a little bit sad about this one because Farfetchd is losing huge power and is instead getting Sniper. Sniper coincides well with the leak item that has just been recently added to the game. It increases the critical ratio by 2. I think that's the words I'm supposed to be using. But this Pokemon's base stats are miserable. Just a base stat total of 377 and the Pokemon starter cost is 4. It doesn't add up. Huge power really helped to aid this Pokemon's stats, but now it's a pretty nothing Pokemon with a very lackluster set of egg moves. So there's like no point in using Farfetchd ever. Not even the Fuse anymore. Skwovet is losing Ripen and it's getting Harvest. I don't know why it's doing that at all, because Ripen is good and this Pokemon is not. It's very not good. So they nerfed this bad Pokemon. I have nothing to say. I'm a little bit upset about this one. Rowlet is losing Unburden and it's getting Sniper. I don't really have much to say about this. Unburden isn't even implemented right now and Sniper just fits the theme of this Pokemon so much better. I think this is an overall buff. I think this is just good. This is a good change. Seviper is losing Intimidate, but it's getting Multi-Skill, which is actually, in my opinion, a buff when you look at its egg moves, because having access to No Retreat allows you to survive the first hit, get off the No Retreat, and then crush the opponent, giving this Pokemon a little bit more independence and, you know, having less Pokemon with Intimidate in the pool of Pokemon to pick from. Zarude is losing Grassy Surge and it's getting Tough Claws, and I would say this is a buff. Look at the Pokemon's attack. Look at the Pokemon's speed. This is going to be a sweeper. Look at the Pokemon's egg moves. This is going to be a sweeper. And 6, a starter cost of 6, that is not bad. That's not bad at all. This Pokemon is good now. You can use this Pokemon. Xerneas is losing Misty Surge and is getting Harvest. I don't know why. I don't know why it's Harvest. I understand losing Misty Surge because Misty Surge and Fairy Aura on Xerneas that has Geomancy and great egg moves, I mean, that's too strong. But replacing Misty Surge with Harvest is just confusing. It's just like, why Harvest? It just seems really random to me. I don't know. I don't like it. Voltorb and Hisuian Voltorb are both getting the same passive changes. They both have Electric Surge and now they're both getting changed to having Transistor as their passive. So this is a nerf, but I think it's not intentional because if you look here, the dev notes say that it's the same exact boost but infinite, which is true, but you look at Electrode's egg moves and you realize it has Rising Voltage, which has double base power on Electric Terrain. And now this Pokemon can't set up Electric Terrain, so... However, I will say having a 140 base power move with a Pokemon that has 80 special attack and 150 speed and a starter cost of 2, that's a little bit too much. So I'm glad they accidentally nerfed it. I'm just happy about it, to be honest. The Vulpix line will be getting Fur Coat in place of Solar Power. I would say this is a fair change because having Drought and Solar Power is a little bit ridiculous because this Pokemon has a 90 base power Flamethrower, and having Drought to amplify the move power and having Solar Power to amplify your special attack and having Tail Glow as an egg move, just all of that would make this Pokemon ridiculously strong off of just one turn. I think having Fur Coat is a nice change for Ninetales because because it, removes the aspect that makes this Pokemon so overpowered and gives it some bulk in return. Choodle, instead of Rock Head, will be getting Rocky Payload. This is absolutely the right change to make because Choodle doesn't have any recoil egg moves, doesn't have any recoil level up moves, and then Dreadnought only has Head Smash as its recoil move. And then you go down to the TMs and HMs and you do have some recoil there, but you're relying on chance there to get those moves. Although I do like the idea of replacing Rockhead, I don't know if Rocky Payload should have been the ability to replace this. It seems like the devs are just trying to centralize this Pokemon around the fact that it has Head Smash, which is a 150 base power move, but 80% accuracy, which you can amplify. You can use items that, boost your accuracy, but that's not all there is to this Pokemon. It has Shell Smash, it has Accelerock, it has Vicious Rend. If you look at the passive change document, it just says bomb for the risk. So they want you to just use that one move and risk it. But it's so boring to centralize your Pokemon around one move. They were just so close to getting it right because Rockhead forces this Pokemon into this box where it's just you use Head Smash and then replace that ability with another ability that again just makes you want to spam Head Smash. I don't know. At this point, you just got to give it like a nothing ability. You got to give it Solid Rock. You got to give it like Anger Shell, something like that. Phantump will be losing Ripen and it will be getting Shadow Tag, which is good for Classic mode and terrible for Endless mode. In Endless mode, the only time the enemy Pokemon is going to be switching out is if you use a move that forcibly switches it out or if it runs away. However, in Classic mode, this is actually a really good ability because now you can prevent your opponent from switching out. You can set up Trick Room, you can Synthesize, you can use Leech Seed, you can Ingrain, you can Will-O-Wisp, you can Confuse Ray, you can set the Pokemon's typing to Grass, you can use Destiny Bond. Oh my god, so many good moves to have with Shadow Tag. So many good moves. Spirit Shackle is kind of like redundant now because you have, an inherent method of preventing the opponent from escaping. But this is a good change for Trevenant, especially in Classic mode. Skiddo, instead of Grassy Surge, will be getting Seed Sower, and the reasoning for that given on the document is that Seed Sower will last longer. I don't know how I feel about this. This is I'm pretty indifferent to this change. The only thing is that Grass Pelt is the hidden ability of this Pokemon. You won't be able to instantly set up grassy terrain and get the defense boost from it, so you'll be tanking hits a lot less, and that's pretty bad for Go-Goat, who has a base stat of 62 in the defense department, so I would say this is actually a nerf. I don't think this is the right change. Ho-Oh, instead of Magic Guard, will be getting Drought, which is a buff and complements this kit very well. Ho-Oh has Regenerator as a hidden ability. It can switch in, take some damage, set up Drought, switch out to whatever Pokemon can take some kind of advantage from using Drought. And alongside that, Ho-Oh has the signature move Sacred Fire, which is a 100 base power move with 95 accuracy. And having that with 130 attack and Drought, that's really good. That's very potent on this Pokemon. I would say it might even be too good, but with a starter cost of 8, I think it's fair. Piplup will sadly be losing Lightning Rod and will instead be getting Drizzle. The reasoning that the devs put out for this on the passives list is that Lightning Rod was BS against the rival battle, which I don't really know anything about that, to be honest, but I feel that it makes no sense to undertune this Pokemon when the other Pokemon starter trios have really good passive abilities by comparison. However, this isn't the worst nerf because with Drizzle you have a damage boost to your water type moves, and well, Empoleon has Steam Eruption as an egg move, so I think that alone makes this a pretty solid passive change. But I do miss Lightning Rod. I do miss having this Pokemon just be a tank. Numel will be getting Fur Coat instead of Stamina, which is a buff because as soon as you send this Pokemon out in the field, you have its defense boosted. Instead of Strongjaw, Alolan Rattata will be getting Adaptability. Adaptability with Hustle makes this Pokemon just okay. If you can get some accuracy boosting items, Population Bomb as an egg move will make this Pokemon really powerful. But apart from that, it's still pretty slow. Its attack is lackluster. This Pokemon is just lackluster in like everything it does. So it is a buff. This Pokemon still sucks, but it's fair because it's a cheap Pokemon. Horsey will be getting Dragon's Maw instead of Drizzle, which is fine because Kingdra is just a really good Pokemon. Having Swift Swim be activated on Switch In is a little bit too good on this Pokemon. Chiyu instead of Drought will be getting Turbo Blaze, which is just a slightly better mold breaker. I don't really have much of a comment on this. Just Chiyu with Drought was a little bit too much. Having a 100 base speed, 135 special attack, it's a little too good. And even looking at the egg moves, come on now. Eruption, 150 base power, 100 accuracy, with drought, with 135 special attack, it's a little too much. So I'm glad this Pokemon got nerfed. It's a little bit too good. Another Treasures of Ruin Pokemon is getting nerfed, as Chien-Pao is also getting its Intrepid Sword overwritten. While it's not a terrible nerf, Chien-Pao loses some of its offensive edge because it's getting Intrepid Sword replaced by Intimidate, which is still fine. Intimidate is a great ability to have, and Sword of Ruin is already really good as is on this Pokemon that is just phenomenal. 135 base speed, 120 attack, great offensive typing, great egg moves. There's not much to say here. I think it's a fair nerf. Eevee is losing Simple and it's getting Pickup instead, which I understand why it's losing Simple, but I don't really like Pickup being their replacement. See, if you look at Eevee's egg moves, No Retreat and Simple is just, too powerful of a combination. Any Pokemon that has Simple and No Retreat that isn't a fusion is going to be really good, and it makes sense for it to lose Simple because of this, or at least lose No Retreat because of this. But replacing that with Pickup, I feel like that's just too drastic of a change. I feel like a better passive replacement would be Protean. I feel like it fits with the theme of the Pokemon a lot better with the evolutionary lines and all that. And also because adaptability is already an ability Eevee gets, so it wouldn't make sense to replace the passive with something that you can get as the ability. I didn't even realize this after saying it, but I think interpreting the document, the devs are even considering replacing the passive with adaptability, but I don't know. That's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Just be mindful that there will be more changes added to the passive changes document. So not everything here is concrete, but the devs seem to be well affirmed in their decisions. So most, if not all, of what I covered in this video will be seen in the upcoming Pokerogue update. Again, let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any suggestions for Pokerogue ideas or videos or something. I don't know. Goodbye.